probably you might hearing me properly. I'm not really sure about that. Why there is so much wind? Because of the summer. Yeah. Whatever. Let's just start. All right. So this is my artifact episode number 4078. Today's date is May 30, 2000, 2026. It's been almost like a morning at 8:16 a.m. By the way, last night I haven't really recorded artifact. The reason was that like because of summer, yeah, like literally just like so hot. Like basically I went to work out at 6 p.m, 6:30 p.m. I came at almost like a 8 p.m. I showered, and then after that, like a kind of like a some thing that during the night kind of like a feel much better. During the day it is also kind of like expecting really hotter, but during the night I was kind of like expecting a little bit kind of like really colder, but it's not. And after I shower, I just kind of like sit in front of my living room and kind of like only just getting the cool air and things and that and that. And I don't want to leave that room because it kind of like feels like really good. Like basically, I usually record artifact in the kind of like a rooftop, and the rooftop is a kind of like a bit more hotter. So I don't know, maybe kind of like a something existing laziness, or maybe kind of like a something convenient or whatever it is. I just decided to not to record artifact. I don't know why, but it just kind of like a feel like that like really bottleneck to kind of like something just go to the rooftop, kind of like experience a lot of heat and kind of like a talk, and then yeah. Like basically is this thing, the main purpose of recording artifact is to kind of like a feel like breathing, feel like kind of a comfortable, but it's not really that comfortable, so that's why I'm just whatever. Okay, I'm making sure that it will not gonna happen. Okay, yeah. By the way, summer will gonna end couple of days after, like basically just May is ended. Okay, now the June is actually started, and probably the monsoon will gonna come at the beginning of the June, probably maybe kind of like a till the 15th, till the kind of like a 10th to 15th of June, probably monsoon will gonna start. Okay, and since the monsoon will gonna start, then everything will kind of like suddenly became really normal. But till then, yeah, we have to bear that heat. By the way, from last 2 days there is a kind of like a enormous amount of heat. There is a kind of like a warning came from the government that you do not kind of like a go outside from 11 a.m to 4 p.m. It's really hot and really like a yeah, like 47 degrees Celsius is not a joke, by the way. Like really hot. Whatever. Should we jump to the question? All right, let's do. All right, so question is client side or server side processing. That's a really good question. All right, yeah. First of all, what exactly is this question, and why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to build a kind of like a application called My Artifact. Now, what exactly is this application? When you write the diary every single time, you cannot able to be write the diary the way that you wanted to. The reason is that your writing speed is a kind of like a much more slower than your thinking process. Why does writing speed is actually slower is because of you need a pen, you need a paper, you need a convenience and lot of things, and because of all those things we cannot able to print our thoughts. But what if I'm gonna say that instead of kind of like somebody writing a diary, what if we could record a diary, audio record a diary? I call this artifact, the audio recording process called artifact. The stuff that you are kind of like listening right now, this is my artifact. My artifact episode number 4078. I am doing this thing for past 11 years. I'm doing this thing every single day. Writing a diary is a self-reflection process, same as recording a diary or recording an artifact is also a self-reflection process. The amount of value that I get from this artifact is like the person that I became today, the person that I will become tomorrow, it is all because of artifact. The amount of value that I get from this artifact, I wanted to share this value to the people, so that people should supposed to feel that kind of like somebody that self-reflection thing inside of them. But how do I supposed to kind of like share this process? By building an application. My application is somewhat something like a YouTube platform. A YouTube platform, you could kind of like upload your video, other people kind of like listen your video, sees your video. Same thing, you kind of like record your artifact, upload your artifact in artifact platform, other people kind of like listen your artifact. Okay, there is only one catch is that key, no one will gonna know your name. Your name is always kept hidden. Like basically my real name is Saurabh Authare, but my artifact handle name would be Prozac 1943 or something else. So that probably is this thing that key, like basically privacy is always been kind of like something just intact. So this is a kind of like something my application. Now before I wanted to build this application, I wanted to know all the possible consequences, specifically worst possible consequences. So I went to ChatGPT, share my idea, and suggest and kind of like tell him that he suggests me at least like hundreds of all the possible worst possible consequences, so that I would gonna ask to myself, and so that I would be aware of what might gonna happen and how do I supposed to fix it or how do I supposed to solve it. Okay, yeah. So ChatGPT kind of like suggests me hundreds of questions. By the way, all those questions actually in the mobile phone, but while recording, I cannot do anything at all. So that's why I wrote the question in book. Alright. So the question is that ki, client side processing or server side processing. Okay. Now, what is exactly the client side processing and server side processing? That's a kind of like a really, yeah, we have to understand that fact. Okay. So, okay. Imagine like, have you ever used Google Gemini or ChatGPT? When you try to generate an image, you kind of like say, give me this particular image and generate. Okay, yeah. So then after that, ChatGPT generate the particular image. It takes time. Okay, yeah. So tell me, the processing actually happened where? Server side or client side? Basically, in this scenario, ChatGPT is a kind of like only processing actually happening kind of like a server side, but it can easily like it can kind of like shows to the user that it's processing. Okay, so processing actually happening server side, but it shows processing to the client side too. Okay, yeah. So basically what exactly it means? Okay, yeah. It means that the processing actually happening server side, but user can actually feel that processing too, like a loading and things and that. Okay, yeah. So that is called kind of like a client side processing, server side processing. Now we actually mentioned that client side processing when I try to hit the generate, client side processing, sorry, server side processing. The client side processing. A client side processing is that key. Okay, it's a kind of like a very much kind of a confusing. So let me kind of like give the another kind of like some example so that you might gonna understand. You went to hotel and you went to the restaurant and you are order a particular dish. Okay, let's just say I wanted to eat a sushi. Okay, so you kind of like order this dish. Now basically is this thing, the waiter kind of like went to the kitchen and they kind of like made the sushi, and after kind of like 10 minutes they kind of like bring me sushi. Okay, so basically what exactly happened in that particular process, I kind of like give the order and I believe that the waiter will kind of like come back with my order after kind of a couple of minutes time, because I believe in that process. That's why I am waiting for that food to come and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now basically the processing actually happened in server side, but the client is also waiting for that processing too. Okay, yeah. And this is kind of like something happened all the time. Client is kind of like waiting. Now when you build the application, most of the client don't want to wait. They want instant thing. They don't want to wait. Okay, yeah. If they want to generate the image, they don't want to wait. They just want to get the image as quickly as possible and things and that. Okay, yeah. In restaurant, okay, like in restaurant context point of perspective, which is kind of like okay, like probably it's, yeah. But when we try to build the application, then probably this thing we are kind of like expecting, a client are kind of like expecting that they should supposed to be wait for longer period of time. Okay, and yeah, that is the kind of like a things. This is like basically almost like a let's just say a kind of like a Instagram is a kind of like a taking too much time to loading the media. Then who will gonna access the Instagram? No, they will not. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is this thing: the YouTube kind of like it takes so much time to load, then no one will gonna watch the video, even if the video is so good and so, yeah, but no one will gonna watch the video. The basically what I'm trying to say is that when the client asks something and when they get something very instantly, the client will kind of like stay longer in your platform. If the client does not really get things that they want as quickly as possible, then client will gonna leave, because client doesn't really have patience, and that is true. That is true. Okay, yeah. So basically is this saying, how do I supposed to be make sure my application that key client should not supposed to be wait, uh, and client should supposed to be get everything as quickly as possible, but not for the wait and things like that. How do I supposed to do that? Okay, yeah. So in my application I have to be figure it out that when will client will kind of like a wait. Okay, yeah. Now wait means what? Okay, let me kind of like tell you in simple scenario. Okay, so my user will open my application. Okay, yeah. And basically is this thing, what they will gonna do, they will kind of like a click on, they are kind of like wanted to listen some sort of artifact, someone people artifact, so they click on play button and artifact will gonna play. Okay, yeah. So in this particular period of time there is no waiting period for kind of like a something process to happen. Why? Because of that key media is already ready. Okay, internet connection is already on. So basically I just have to kind of like give the information to that user, and user will kind of like listen the artifact. So very less amount of time will really require to kind of like a user will click and kind of like something like user will kind of like get the instant access regarding about what they wanted to listen and things and that. Okay, yeah. So there is no kind of like a processing time, there is no processing, the client will not gonna wait for processing, they will get the instantly. Okay, yeah. Now another thing, okay, now another thing is that key basically search. Okay, like if the client wanted to search somebody, how much it time take to search. Okay, first of all is that now in my application I don't have feature to search. I am not gonna implement right now. In the future I might gonna implement, but I will not gonna implement right now. Okay, yeah. It's not because of that key basically is this thing that key like it's kind of like a very difficult, no. But the problem is that now if I kind of like include the search feature, means like that you could able to be search somebody or things and that it might create the kind of like a privacy violation. I'm not really sure about this thing. Okay, yeah. But probably is this thing that like, okay, yeah. Let me tell you something what exactly happened. Okay, if I have the search feature, what kind of like a sorry privacy will gonna violate. Okay, so let's just say I am a kind of like a somebody a random user, age almost like a just a teenage boy. Okay, and who is a kind of like a listening a artifact, a couple of person of artifact. Maybe that particular person a girl. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, when she kind of like a talk about something I fall in love. Okay, yeah. Why? Because of that key like I kind of like a heard and we resonate and things and that. Okay, yeah. So in that situation I will always kind of like a look at to her. I always kind of like a look into her that key what she's kind of like doing, does she kind of like upload new artifact and things and that. Okay, yeah. And how do I supposed to be know kind of like a search about her, like a go to a search about her profile and kind of like a look at and things like that. Okay, yeah. Which is a kind of like a somewhat something that he I don't know, yeah. Like basically it's this thing na, why am I not like I believe that he might gonna be compromised, like privacy might compromise. I'm not really sure, or maybe I don't really have the proper kind of like a complete information regarding about how do I supposed to implement at the moment. But I will not gonna implement the search feature at the moment. At the beginning, probably not. At the beginning, basically is this thing that na he like a like I don't know, yeah. Like should I supposed to be add the search feature or not? I'm not really sure about this thing. I'm kind of like a very much confused regarding about that. Sometime I think that okay, let's kind of like add the search feature, but sometime I realize that no, it shouldn't supposed to be, and things and that. Because even if I kind of like add the search feature, I was kind of like decided that key user will not able to be search the kind of like a other user artifact, like other user, like basically this thing, people will not gonna search my handle like a pros at 1943. Why? Because probably the kind of like a something, the privacy violation. But if the user are not kind of like a searching other user, then what's the point of search? Okay, that doesn't really make sure that doesn't make sense at all. So I'm kind of like a very much confused regarding about the search feature. So I will not gonna implement at the moment. In the future I might gonna implement, but not at the moment, not at the beginning. Okay, not okay. Okay, but regarding about the search, how does kind of like a assembly the kind of like a processing will gonna happen? Like basically client will kind of like a search regarding about particular username and things and that process actually happen in server. So basically is this saying that the time required for kind of like a searching particular kind of like a particular user doesn't really take that much amount of time, because of that the data is already I have. Okay, yeah, it doesn't really take that much amount of time to kind of like a process and things and that. But still, this is kind of like a really good example for kind of like client side server, client side processing, or kind of like a server side processing. But search feature is a kind of like a things that I'm not really sure at the moment. I will gonna implement when I will have, I don't know, at the like I will not gonna implement at the moment. When I will kind of like a something taking after, maybe then I will. Okay, yeah. The biggest kind of like a some bottleneck for kind of like a client side server, client side processing is the kind of like a when the people will kind of like a record the artifact. Okay, so let me tell you what exactly happened. So when the user will kind of like a click on the record artifact, they wanted to record the artifact, they click it, then there is a kind of like a somebody the warning screen actually appears. The warning screen, it shows that we do not mention your name, things and that. Okay, yeah. You kind of like read that message and try to understand why this warning screen, because it's kind of like somebody give them kind of like some understanding that they shouldn't supposed to be kind of like mention their name and things and that, a kind of like somebody a warning, okay, before you are kind of like doing this thing, like basically it's this thing that caution while crossing the road. Okay, so basically giving this particular kind of like a warning screen might be kind of like a people are kind of like a bitterly cautioned regarding about that they will not gonna kind of like mention their identity at the spur of the moment. Okay, because even if I have the kind of like all the AI things that would kind of like maintain the privacy and things and that, but still if the kind of like a mistake will not gonna happen at the beginning, then it's kind of like a really good for me to kind of like a not fix in the later, because I'm believing kind of like solving problem in the on the beginning before it even existed. Okay, so basically it's this thing that warning screen is actually for there. Okay, yeah, so for the warning screen, right, the kind of like countdown actually started from 10 seconds, and then after that you click understood, and then recording actually started. Okay, yeah. Now people will gonna talk. By the way, there is a kind of like a prompt in the top box. The prompt is kind of like a says a topic to talk regarding about particular stuff. Let's just say a kind of like a somebody that what is actually first time you experience when you had love, first time you like when you kind of like realize that you fall in love and things like that. No, basically you kind of like get this question and you realize that oh, this is a really good topic to talk. Then you are kind of like giving the answer regarding about talk. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing when the user will kind of like a recording audio, it is my responsibility, okay, that key processing should supposed to be happen client side. Okay, yeah, because the client is a kind of like a recording audio. Okay, so audio when the record, it should supposed to be happen in locally on their phone, so processing actually happen in the client side. Okay, yeah. So I have to make sure that the client will record the audio, that audio should supposed to be kind of like somebody recorded properly. Example, like basically while recording someone called him, so in that situation what will gonna happen to the recorder, what will gonna happen, does it corrupted? Does it stop? Does it pause? What? Or maybe kind of like a while recording, the mobile phone shut down because of the low battery and things and that. So in that situation, what will gonna happen? Does it kind of like a something like that key kind of like a something corrupt or things or that and that? Or else like a people will kind of like a record the audio and things and that, and suddenly the mobile actually fall from hand and kind of like a drop. And because of this drop, kind of like a things happen with the phone, mobile phone kind of like a directly went to the shutdown and things and that and that. So in that situation, what will gonna happen to the audio? Okay, yeah, does it get corrupted? Does it what and things and that and that. So in that situation, I have to make sure that the audio should supposed to be not get corrupted, even in every situation. Okay, yeah. So I was actually thinking that the audio should supposed to be kind of like a recorded in wave format. Wave is a kind of like a raw audio compress things. Okay, so that wave kind of like a really good. Okay, like a basically is this thing that na ki uncompressed kind of like a audio file, which kind of like a really good for filtering process to kind of like a remove the background noise and things and that. So wave is a kind of like a really good kind of like a somebody a format, so that I would kind of like a record the client side voice. Okay, but I have to be kind of like understand all the possible scenarios when this thing actually happened, then making sure that audio will not gonna corrupted. Okay, yeah. Okay, I kind of like a design my application in that way so that audio will not gonna corrupted in every possible scenario. One thing. Another thing, after particular client will kind of like a somebody drop the phone and things like that, and when you turn on the phone, what will gonna happen? Does that application, does that artifact that particular person recorded is kind of like a corrupted or not? Or like it's not gonna corrupted, it will kind of like a showing in kind of like a draft. Okay, yeah, that key in this draft you are kind of like somebody recorded this much artifact and suddenly something stop, and that's why. Okay, so basically, and in that draft that user kind of like somebody listen his whatever the artifact that he recorded. Okay, yeah. So basically is this particular thing process should supposed to be happened on client side, specifically on their mobile phone. So I have to make sure that their audio should supposed to be recorded very much properly. One thing. Another thing, now doesn't really happen anything at all, client kind of like a recorded properly, doesn't really phone damage doesn't really happen. Now after the client kind of like a recorded everything, it stopped. Now after it stopped, there is a multiple process actually happened. First of all is that the transcription actually happened, then kind of like a save in kind of like a local and things and that. There are multiple process actually happening. I have to make sure like I kind of like a solely like a transcription is a kind of like a things that na ki at the moment I'm not really sure that ki how do I supposed to be kind of like a somebody process, like I'm not really sure how do I supposed to be kind of like a somebody do this thing, because I was actually thinking that na ki audio should supposed to be kind of like a transcribed and things, and like basically what exactly happened, I'm gonna tell you the scenario. Okay, yeah. So basically user kind of like a record the audio, and after the record the artifact, user will kind of like a two option, review or publish, or save in a draft. Okay, yeah. Basically is this thing, first of all let's talk about the draft. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, when the user will kind of like a record the audio, he would have option that he would supposed to save this artifact into the draft. Okay, yeah. So that he might gonna review again, might gonna review after and kind of like a publish later. Okay, but at least he would kind of like a save this artifact to the draft. Okay, which is kind of like a really good. Okay, yeah. One thing. Another thing, if that particular person wanted to publish that artifact, he have to review this artifact. Review is a very much essential. Why? Because of that, if I'm gonna say I will gonna maintain their privacy, but there are so many things that user might gonna say, mention about them and things and that. Some will intentionally, some will not. Okay, yeah. If I'm gonna say my AI will kind of like a somebody not like block the noun and things and that, but still human will have kind of like somebody talk about something, they might gonna kind of like reveal their identity in so many ways and things and that. So basically is this thing, I wanted that key user should supposed to be kind of like a listen their entire artifact first, almost like a 95% of the artifact. Why am I kind of like a letting user to listen their own artifact? Because let me tell you one thing, when you record the artifact, you kind of like a recorded like everything at the spur of the moment, you might gonna mention something. Okay, yeah. and basically even if you didn't really mention your name, but you kind of like reveal your identity somewhat something, like basically you might gonna mention that ki, like basically today I went to the college and today is a kind of a day, like basically I have to be kind of like a perform a kind of like a some medical surgery assessment and kind of like a things really not well. So basically when I'm say something like that, there is no noun at all, so AI does not block any kind of like a name, but other user will kind of like understand that ki this user means I am the user will kind of like went into the medical school, that means I am from medical college. Okay, yeah. So it kind of like simply reveal the identity. I know it's a very small thing, it's nothing like that much kind of like a stuff, but it does like for most of the user, privacy is a kind of like a somewhat something very different from every user. Some people might gonna say that ki, okay, this is kind of like a very much common thing, like basically I am come from the medical college, what might kind of like a privacy will gonna compromise, but for some people they might think that ki, no, this is kind of like a very much kind of like a privacy will gonna compromise, so things and that. So in that situation, user will have a kind of like a something that ki authority, or user will have kind of like a things that ki remove this particular segment, that ki probably they will not gonna reveal their identity and things and that. Okay, like a user will kind of like decide that ki what kind of like a privacy does they want it to reveal or not. Okay, yeah. Right now at the beginning I will not gonna have the edit feature, but I will gonna have the edit feature later. Okay, yeah. In the edit feature, user should supposed to be listen the entire artifact, and in the while listening, the user will kind of like realize that this particular segment I wanted to trim, that particular user will kind of like select that particular section of that title subtitle. Okay, and click on the remove that particular thing, so that it kind of like a really helpful for kind of like a some user to kind of like a some understand that what kind of like a some information that goes into the public. Okay, yeah. And this is very much essential because I cannot promise privacy to the every user from my side point of perspective, because I don't know the privacy for them. Okay, like basically what am I should supposed to be giving the privacy, like I will not gonna mention, like I will try to make sure that user will not gonna mention the name and things and that I will have their kind of like assembly the noun will kind of like a block the every name on the artifact things and that, but still privacy is a kind of like a very much kind of like a somebody very much different. I don't know what kind of like a user privacy required for user, so user will kind of like decide that what is actually they wanted to share and what is actually they don't want it to. Okay, yeah. So and basically the editing feature is not the way that you kind of like expecting as a Premiere Pro where you require like a kind of like high skill. No, it's a very simple thing. A playhead actually happened through kind of like a subtitle. Okay, yeah. And also audio is actually happening, user can kind of like listen the audio as well as subtitle. Okay, yeah. And they realize that this particular section I don't want, they select that particular thing like a text and kind of like remove that thing, then this will kind of like a really good. And this actually happened on client side processing, this actually happened on client side. So after the kind of like some particular person, that particular user will kind of like some satisfied that he kind of like edited the entire artifact, he's really good, now he wanted to publish. Okay, yeah. So then he kind of like put the title, kind of emotion button, and kind of like hit the send, hit the publish. Okay, yeah. Now this is actually happened when artifact uploaded into the artifact server, and it takes time. It takes time because when it kind of like uploaded to the artifact server, in the artifact server there is a multiple processing actually happening through. Okay, first of all is that key artifact will kind of like try to make sure that key the kind of like assembly that key audio is actually properly clear, there is no kind of like assembly the background noises, too much background noises, try to kind of like maximize the audio of the user voice and things like that one thing. Another thing is that na ki probably if some user wanted to clone their kind of like assembly voices with the AI voice, then this would supposed to be happen in the client side. It will not gonna happen in kind of like a server side, it will gonna happen in client, sorry, it will not gonna happen in client side, it will gonna happen in server side if they wanted to replace their audio with a AI clone voice and things and that. Okay, yeah. And after all those things, then kind of like yeah, it takes time. Like after the kind of like somebody user will hit the publish, then after that kind of like a couple of minutes it will kind of like upload, and maybe kind of like after a few minutes it will kind of like went live. Okay, so this is what actually happened. So regarding about the client side processing and server side processing, so recording and editing actually happen in a client side. Then after that publishing and AI voice cloning and kind of like a lot of feature, they will happen in the server side. This is all actually happened. So this is my application, and this is how the processing, client side processing and server side processing actually happening. By the way, there are so many things will gonna happen in the client side processing, server side processing, like a lot of stuff, basically like a feed algorithm, or kind of like a somebody that ki how should you supposed to block some sort of user or things, and that and that and that. There's a lot of things, probably, but this is kind of like a really important thing. Right now I am not kind of like a some like a having like I'm not kind of like a providing that many feature at the beginning. Like edit feature is not actually available at the moment. Basically it's this thing at the beginning, user will kind of like a recorded their voice, and if they kind of like a didn't really mean, like if they wanted to edit their name and things, they cannot able to do this thing at the beginning. Either they have to be kind of like a something that he delete the entire artifact and kind of like a re-record something. Like probably like edit feature I don't really have it at the moment. Okay, and first of all is that na ki edit feature will not kind of like a something like a like I know it's very much essential, but at the moment I'm not gonna provide that edit feature. Like after I have resources, then I will kind of then I will kind of like do this thing. Resources means like money, people, and things and that, because right now I'm developing my application, but I'm not Android developer. I am kind of like trying to developing application by AI agents and things and that. AI agents is really good, but still is this thing, there is a lot of things that I have to figure it out. Okay, I don't want my app should supposed to be like, I'm kind of like a thinking that ki, try not to give that many features that app will went crash. Okay, yeah, slowly increase the things. Okay, so this is all I want. So this is the client side processing and server side processing. All right, is it is then